Lesson 2, Stakeholder Management. Stakeholder management is the process of managing the expectations and relationships with the people or groups that have an interest in the project or will be affected by its deliverables or its outputs. So that's our definition. So what are the steps to manage stakeholders? The first one is to have a good understanding of who are your stakeholders. So we call that stakeholder mapping. It's mapping all your stakeholders that have a level of influence and interest in your project. Based on information, you need to start building the relationships with all the stakeholders so they are supportive of your project. Then you do a constant evaluation of how your stakeholders are changing their attitudes or interests on the project. And then you start making changes and improving your management of those relationships. One of the tools that is used in managing these stakeholders is called the Stakeholder Matrix. And in this matrix, what we do is that we identify all the stakeholders in our project. Then, based on the information that we have at that moment, we try to have an understanding of the type of interest. What their interest in the project? Then, their level of interest at that moment. It could be low, medium, or high. Then, the type of influence, or is also known the type of power. What's the power they have? How they can influence the project? And what is that level of influence or power? Again, it could be high, medium, high, depending on the stakeholder. Based on that information, then you can identify the strategies to manage that relationship. One of those tools that we use to identify that is called the stakeholder chart. Here we can see that we have a chart where we have interest from low, medium to high, and then influence from low, medium to high. And what it does is that it identifies different groups of stakeholders, and each one of these groups has a different strategy in how you start building that relationship. So for group A, that means the group that has a high level of interest, a high level of influence. The stakeholder strategy, how you can manage the relationship, is by keeping them committed and meeting their expectations. This is high level stakeholders. Your donor will be here. He has a high level interest and a high level of influence. Group B then is the one that will have a low interest but high influence. This is a risky stakeholder group. You need to keep them satisfied and increase their interest in the project, because there is an opportunity for you to, because they have high influence, high power in the project, but their interest low, there is an opportunity for you to increase their interest so they become supportive of the project. The other group is the group C. They have high to medium interest, but their level of influence is low to medium. You don't need to do much work on them. You may keep them informed, maintaining basic communication so they are aware of that. They are supportive of the project, but they don't have much power. The last group is group D, in which their level of interest and level of influence is low. You keep them under observation and monitor for changes, because usually that happens, that one of these groups may be changing in terms of the level of influence or the level of interest on the project. Here are some of the tips to help you manage stakeholders. Know and understand all the stakeholders in your project. That is important. Build those relationships. Invest the time in terms of understanding what are their needs and start building the relationship, because they're going to be providing you support to the project. Manage communications. Communication is the best way to start building that relationship and building trust on the project. If they are aware and understand the project, they're more willing to support it. And monitor changes. Notice that at the moment you are planning your project, you're using the information that you have at that moment in terms of the level of interest or influence on the project. As you start making progress, some of those stakeholders might change the level of interest or the level of influence. So you need to adapt again your strategy with that specific. So it's important to monitor and adapt for those changes.